And you're from Long Island, right?
I'm from Syosset. So the first games I remember going to was like 73 playoffs.
Oh, wow.
Like being really little, like 6 with my dad. And Dave Kingman joining the team. And George Foster. All the things that you thought would turn it that didn't. And then you heard there's a guy coming next year named Darryl Strawberry. And you knew about it just so far in advance that like him and Dwight Gooden were coming. Like things might change. And then I was at all those games when Dwight Gooden, would have 15 strikeouts or whatever. Every single pitch was like the last pitch of a game. Like the entire game, every single pitch, the place exploded. I've just never seen anything like it.
Hey, what's up? It's Vito Calisi from Meet at the Apple, Jonathan Barron from Meet at the Apple, and Judd Apatow from just every major comedy movie of the last 24 years. Now, Judd, I'm going to be just straightforward. Yeah. I literally went to film school because of you, wrote my essay about how I thought your movies changed comedy for the better.
I want to read this essay. I want a copy of it.
What was your grade on that essay?
I may need that for my self-esteem, like when I can't write.
It was a college application essay, so it wasn't like
okay.
It was like what I wrote to get into college was just about, and I think it's true. I mean, I think there was a big shift. I think in like the early 2000s, like late 90s, there were some really great written ones, but then there was like a lull. And I feel like when you started releasing movies like 40-Year-Old Virgin and Knocked Up, Funny People, which is I think my favorite, just movies that had actual heart and plot and substance, and not just like still fart jokes, but it was elevated. I don't know. I was nervous too. But like it was at an elevated level, and the movies had such heart.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, there was that weird moment in comedy when some of the movies were kind of running out of gas. Like there was like Haunted Honeymoon.
Yeah,
you remember that? Like there were like a few movies that we all wanted to be great but weren't great.
Parody movies, Scary Movie set off like a big parody movie.
Yeah, there was a lot of the parody movies, and we all wanted to do like a combination of Jim Carrey movies and Cameron Crowe movies. Like, can you do both in the same movie?
So that's interesting. I didn't know that. I would have never thought that was a basis for you. But Cameron Crowe, also one of my favorite directors. I don't know. You ever read his? He has a book that it's conversations with him and Billy Wilder.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He was the guy. If there was anyone I was really ripping off, it was Cameron Crowe, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Say Anything, the John Cusack character. I mean, that was my favorite style because in Fast Times, it's like Sean Penn is hilarious. You got Spicoli, you have all those jokes. And then you had this Jennifer Jason Leigh losing her virginity and getting pregnant. And like it had both in it. And I was like, oh, you can do both at the same time. You can do hard comedy and real comedy.
So Knocked Up, that's like a good example of that because like when you think of the base plot of the movie, it's terrifying for most people. The thought of like you're living this life one day, then all of a sudden get this random girl that you just met pregnant. You have to deal with it, but it's so funny. There's so much heart, and like I quote that movie with my wife to this day. In the most random time. The amount of times I say I can barely afford spaghetti.
Yeah.
And just like as we're thinking about having kids and stuff, I just keep yelling, I'm going to read the baby books.
Yeah. There was that line that Seth had about the only money he had was because he had his foot run over by a postal truck. And he says something like, yeah, and I got about like $6,000 left. So that should last a couple of years.
Wait, also not to just keep going quotes, but also the fantasy baseball draft scene. Yeah. Too bad I got him 2 rounds ago.
Yeah.
About Matsui.
Oh, yeah, the Matsui.
Love that. I love Spider-Man.
Yes.
Just that movie's just full of like underrated quotes. But yeah, just enough of me just glazing over how much I'm a fan of yours.
Yeah, see what you're going to probably, if you haven't already picked up on it, Vito's the big movie guy on the podcast. I'm the sports guy, so I don't watch a ton of movies. I'm kind of a diehard sports fan, so and it's kind of a joke in our group here that I'm just not a big movie watcher. Everyone,
have you watched Kicking and Screaming about soccer starring Will Ferrell?
No, I haven't.
Connection to you as a man.
I haven't. If you sat here and rattled off like
Talladega Nights, you didn't even watch that?
I think I've seen Blades of Glory.
Okay.
You know he is also a star maker.
What?
You know the amount of talent he's found? And like we could be the next too.
I guess, yeah, I mean.
I've never had, it's so funny, I don't think I've had baseball players in the movies. We've worked with like LeBron James.
So I was going to ask you about athletes in your movies. Amari, okay.
What about podcasters?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of podcasters.
Yeah.
Maybe you could have 2 more.
What about baseball? What about baseball and cinema? The intersection
Yeah.
there. Have there been a lot of baseball players that you've worked with throughout your career?
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, other than the documentary we did, Doc and Darryl for 30 for 30, which was a great experience because that's when I was in high school. That's when all that was happening. Is early '80s when the Mets were not doing well, but I loved an empty Shea Stadium.
Yeah,
I just felt so proud.
Boy, was it empty back in those days.
I mean, when you're just with 5,000 people in a 50,000 seat stadium, and then when they would win in that circumstance. I mean, I always remember, Rusty Staub pinch hit home run to end the game in extra innings. Like for the people who stayed, just one of the great moments of your life. There's nothing better than having a team not playing well, and when they win, it was just so fun.
I mean, look, you can ask the years we grew up.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I mean, we grew up with late empty Shea Stadium, but
yeah, there were some
Citi Field
years.
years.
Definitely, especially as I grew up in Central Jersey. Vito grew up in the
Manhattan.
city, and I grew up during Jeter and Paul O'Neill and the Yankee heydays. So it was a trying time as a Met fan.
And you're from
in
Long
those
Island,
days.
right?
I'm from Long Island. So
What part of Long Island?
I'm from Syosset.
Okay.
So the first games I remember going to was like 73 playoffs.
Oh wow.
Like
Okay.
being really
you had it
little, like
nice.
6 with my dad, going to those playoffs, and
John Matlack.
we always went. I always remember. I would like such memories as a kid of certain moments. One was Bud Harrelson was the first base coach, and every time Pete Rose would get to first base, the crowd would just go crazy and just start chanting, "Kick his ass!"
Yeah, the fight
kick his
in the
ass,
LCS.
because that was such a legendary fight. And Dave Kingman joining the team, and George Foster, all the things that you thought would turn it that didn't.
Yeah.
And then you heard there's a guy coming next year named Darryl Strawberry, and you knew about it just so far in advance that like him and Dwight Gooden were coming. Like things might change. And then I was at all those games when Dwight Gooden, would have 15 strikeouts or whatever. And those were like in '85, like the year before.
The best season of all time, arguably. Yeah.
Yeah, really, really fun. And it was the exciting thing was every single pitch was like the last pitch of a game. Like the entire game, every single pitch, the place exploded. I've just never seen anything like it since.
Yeah, as a young fan, I mean, we obviously weren't around for that. My dad educated me on Doc, and I've watched the videos and all of that, but I regret never having the opportunity because you hear about just how electrifying his starts were. What about 1986? Of course, they won the World Series. Were you at any of those games that year in the World Series?
Let me tell you about '86. So '85 is the year I graduated from high school.
So you were in the prime of your young adult life.
I'd watch those games while bussing tables at El Torito in Syosset, and I was so heartbroken when they missed the playoffs in the years before that. And I followed every game to the point of physical and mental pain. It was excruciating. I followed it so closely. And then I got to college, and I'm like, can't do it anymore. Can't do it anymore. Paid zero attention, and they won the World Series.
See, that's why.
Didn't watch one one. I don't think I watched the World Series.
Really?
I just checked out that year completely. And because I was like, I can't be the kind of sports fan where my life is bad because they're not making it. And that's where I was headed. And so now I'm the worst fan. I'm just a fair weather fan. I check in at certain times of the year, near the end of seasons for all sports. Can't remember anyone's name. Can't remember anything. Like my brain just said, you're going to kill me.
That's because you live in L.A.
Yes.
That's the LA sports fan thing.
Exactly. Although, when I moved to LA, the first year I went to a Dodger game, and I was screaming at like Guerrero or something, like I was at Shea, and then they tried to kick me out of the stadium because no one yelled at Dodger Stadium. Like no one abused the players. I'm like, oh no, that's the only reason why we're here is to scream at the players. I'm like 17 years old, screaming at everybody.
I mean, I can't say it here because we work for the team now, but there's definitely, as a kid, there were some players I yelled at too.
Yeah?
I'm not going to say who.
Yeah,
I'll tell you off there.
You don't have to dox anybody.
But baseball's the best. I think it's the best storytelling sport. Outside of the, I mean, the '86 Mets are the ones everybody goes to. But is there any sort of baseball movie that you would make or that you've even thought of before?
I don't know. It's so funny when everyone says you want to do a baseball movie. I think, how do we fill the crowds when we shoot? That's where my head goes. I'm just like, I guess digitally, I just go to the technology of how you would do it. It's a
good question.
When it's done well, there was a great baseball movie about something was wrong with someone's arm.
Rookie of the Year?
Rookie of the Year. What a great movie.
The Mets were the villain.
Was it John Hancock? Was that the director?
He was on the Cubs, and by the way, we got Mets Cubs tonight here.
Yeah.
So funny.
That was a great, truly great.
The kids' movies are the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. When they pulled that off, and I think that may be one of the best ones ever. Yeah. Oh, Daniel Stern.
Oh, Daniel Stern.
Yeah, that was, and we worked with Daniel. We did a movie not a lot of people talk about anymore. It's called Celtic Pride. And it's about, two guys that kidnap a basketball player so their team can win. Maybe it stars Dan Aykroyd and Daniel Stern and Damon Wayans. Maybe not.
Is that a must-watch?
Is it a must-watch? If you have the flu, you'll enjoy it.
Okay.
No, before we get you out of here, I just want to ask one question. Funny People is my favorite. Is it based on The Great Gatsby?
I wish I was that smart that I could base anything on great literature. I've read The Great Gatsby, and I probably read it in the years before that, but I didn't really think about that. That wasn't in my
Did you notice the similarities after people pointed it out, or do you not even see that?
I probably don't see it, because what I was thinking about was, when you get sick and you're like, now I get how to live my life, and then you get better and you turn right back into an asshole, and that you can't hold on to your wisdom, and that in the second half of the movie, Seth sees how awful he really is. That Sandler's playing a terrible guy, and who only makes the slightest turn at the end. So maybe he's beginning to get it. That's the main thing I was thinking about. But I'll have to read The Great Gatsby again.
Oh wait, I just need to say one more thing.
Yeah.
If you buy Judd's DVDs, the commentary on every single one of your DVDs, they're basically podcasts, because you guys barely talk about the movie.
Yeah.
I think on the Knocked Up one, Bill Hader, you just start being like, hey, Bill, could you just do impressions? And you just say, what would Al Pacino say about this scene?
Because there's not enough time whenever you do a commentary. Every scene is a minute. So by the time you go that day I remember it was raining, and then the scene's over. You never get to the thing you wanted to say. So I stopped trying to have it match perfectly.
I love I watch all those commentaries. I wish more directors would put commentary back into movies.
Well, it's hard because people don't really buy DVDs.
Yeah, it's just me and three other dudes.
Yeah, so for some reason, they don't find a place for them digitally. It should be on streaming that you can listen to the commentary somewhere. I know my wife always wants me to throw out all the DVDs.
Can't.
But I can't. I go, there's extras.
And I can't let this interview end without, so people told me when I said we're having Judd on the show, you got to ask him for some movie recommendations. As someone who doesn't really watch movies at all.
For you, movies you should watch.
Yeah. You've got, you sat here for 10 minutes, so you probably have
bad. He hasn't seen any of them.
I think you would like all
what are some classics? Give me I've seen Adam Sandler movies.
The Adam McKay movies.
I don't even know what that is.
Talladega Nights, and Step Brothers.
I've seen Step Brothers.
Succession.
What about the core all-time classics?
All-time classics.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, let's hear them.
Being There, the Hal Ashby, Peter Sellers movie.
Never heard of it.
That, you can't go wrong. Harold and Maude.
I know Harold and Kumar.
Yeah, very close. It's very close. You can't go wrong with Network. You ever see Network?
Is that...
We used to play it in the stadium.
The Let's Go Mets chant. Oh, that's I need you to stick your head outside and scream.
Have you seen the movie?
No, he's just seen the scene. They play it.
I've seen it in Shea. That's the only thing I know about
you should have told him.
Social Network, I know.
Punch Drunk Love, Adam Sandler, Punch Drunk Love.
Paul Thomas Anderson.
I've seen Happy Gilmore.
There Will Be Blood.
You should have told him Potemkin. And
I know. I should have gone farther back. Just silent films.
Citizen Kane.
Buster Keaton, Sherlock Jr.
The Kid.
You should start from the beginning. You should start from them just shooting
the very
a horse.
beginning of Film.
The Great Train Robbery. That's a great one. You should check out, John.
All right. I appreciate all the recommendations. I will start trying to run through that list.
But mainly Celtic Pride.
Celtic Pride. It sounds like a great theme, and it sounds like something that
Celtic Pride, Kicking and Screaming, starring Will Ferrell. I'm trying to think what other sports movies.
Bended Like Beckham. I've seen that one. Have you seen that one?
You can't go wrong with Bended Like
Bended I know that one. So I'm not as bad as I sold myself short.
You are as bad. You are.
All right, so go watch Celtic Pride, and then go find it on a streaming service, and then go subscribe to Meet at the Apple on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're also available on the Mets YouTube. But thank you for listening. Thank you, Judd, for joining us, and get you to enjoy the game.
Let's go Mets.
go have 4 hot dogs.
Hey, what's up? It's Meet at the Apple. I'm Vito Calisi. That's Jonathan Barron. And just to put everything on the table, my microphone is still broken, so I am using my AirPods right now, which I don't love. And John, I'm sure it doesn't sound as crisp as you sound right now.
We'll see how crisp I wind up sounding when we go back and watch the tape. I literally just walked through the door after a 5-hour flight cross country. Watched the Met game. MLB Network had the game, so I was able to watch. Not the outcome we wanted, but onward and upward. And 5 is going to be a topical number here. Not just the hours I spent on a plane, but also a little theme that we're going to introduce here on this episode.
Yeah, so and before we get to that, I do want to say the Judd Apatow interview that just played for you all, really fun opportunity for me being just a lifelong, not lifelong, I guess, because, most of my life, I guess, at this point, because I'm 31 and Judd Apatow probably hit the scene when I was about 13 or so. But just a really cool interview, really fun because Judd was self-admittedly much more of an 80s Mets fan and before, 80s and 70s Mets fan than he is a current-day Mets fan. He walked into the room and said to John and I, "Please don't try to talk to me about the current Mets. I know nothing. I might start watching after this game tonight, but I really don't know much." And it was a really fun time.
Well, I wanted to say to Judd, please don't ask me anything about movies because I don't watch any movies. I downloaded so many movies for the plane. I do this all the time. Download like a boatload of things to the point where my iPad storage capacity is full. And then I watch none of them. Then I wind up just like buying the Wi-Fi and just doom scrolling Twitter, doom scrolling TikTok, nodding off a little bit. So Good Will Hunting was at the top of my, I know it's not a Judd Apatow movie, but I was going to watch that. I was going to watch I Think You Should Leave, which I still am going to do. I just didn't get around to it. And of course, I had the Met game on for the return flight. So enjoyed that. And then I slept, which was very necessary. A few hours of sleep because busy times on the West Coast, but we're back here. So looking forward to talking a little Met baseball and a lot more with you here, Vito.
Yeah, I also do that, John. I always download a bunch of movies and shows I think I'm going to watch, and then I usually just look at Twitter the entire Wi-Fi becoming widely available on flights changed how I fly completely. It's really just me on Twitter for most of the time I'm in the air now.
Yeah.
But John, you mentioned before 5s are going to be a new theme we have because we got a new format or a new kind of segment we have for you all. We're going to do doing things called the 5s on every episode, and those are going to be broken up into 3 different topics. The 5 things to be happy about from the previous series, the 5 things the Mets need to do in the series coming up, and then 5 things you can do at Citi Field for whatever series is coming up. And it is named in honor of John and I, one of our favorite Mets, David Wright.
Yeah, so I think we should get right into it. Obviously, the Mets get swept in Cleveland this week. They'll be off on Thursday, and then they'll be right back at it on Friday. 10 games in 10 days, all at home, starting with the San Francisco Giants. And while the Mets did not win a game in Cleveland, and while a lot of people are feeling dejected about what happened in Cleveland, there were many things about that series, in this series, that Mets fans should at least take bits and pieces of and say, hey, this is a trend that if this continues, things are going to level out here and the Mets are going to, they'll be okay. So let's jump right into it. And the first one I want to throw out there is Jeff McNeil, who had a really nice series in Cleveland, of course, homers in back-to-back games, but this goes a little further back than that. His last 5 games for Jeff McNeil, he's hitting .333. He's got 3 extra base hits. He's only struck out 1 time, 1 walk in 21 plate appearances. I know that Steve Gelbs gave the report when the Mets were in Miami over the weekend that Jeff was going to the knobless bat, the one that he kind of made famous a few years ago, and he went back to it, and it seems to be paying dividends, whether it's a coincidence and, Jeff's just a good hitter, and he's just kind of finding to start his footing a little bit at the plate, or if it really is the knobless bat. I don't know. Vito, you don't know. I think Jeff would be the only one that could really tell us that, but Jeff has he seems to be finding his stride at the plate, and that's really big news for the Mets. You want everyone in the lineup hitting and contributing, and if Jeff McNeil can contribute, the lineup becomes that much longer.
Yeah, and I saw that on Twitter or X. We keep calling it Twitter, but apparently it is X now.
No, that was the worst rebrand ever. No one calls it X.
By far.
No one.
By far.
You still go on Twitter.com.
I still go on Twitter.com. When I'm looking up somebody's account, I still look up like their name, Twitter.
Yeah.
I say tweet. I'm never going to call it X. I don't even think they've come up. I don't even know if they've come up with a name for what I remember it was Zeets at one point. Then they said it was Post.
Yeah.
But who even cares? But my point was that I saw a lot of tweets of people talking about the knobless bat. So, I mean, if Jeff did one thing right, it is the fans are pumped about the knobless bat making a return. And, John, I feel like me and you saw him peruse bats at spring training. So I feel like, in a weird way, we're part of this ride that Jeff is on right now.
Yeah, another Met who had a big weekend in Cleveland and goes back to Miami. The second one of our five here. Good takeaways from the week in Cleveland was Mark Vientos, who came up earlier in the week. And, it was unclear what the playing breakdown was going to be, or he came up last week, I should say, before the Phillies series. And Mark had himself a massive week in Cleveland. 4 extra base hits in his last 3 games. He's been hitting the ball hard. He's been pulling the ball. We all know about the opposite field power. He put on display a 430-foot blast to the shrubbery in Cleveland. Mark's been really good. I mean, it's a small sample, but the OPS is over 1,000. He led the Mets in homers in spring training. You go back to last September, he had a lot of homers, and they came against impressive pitchers. We talked about that with Mark in spring training. This was not the classic 40-man rosters expand in September, and you got some quadruple A, triple A, double A pitchers that are just filling out a roster and guys are feasting. No. He homered against Luis Castillo, against Zach Gallen, against Ranger Suarez, against Roldis Chapman. So Mark is he's a really good hitter, and I feel like he's gotten a little he's been a little overlooked in a way. But that bat is legit, and the Mets are going to find ways to get Mark in the lineup if he continues to hit like this. So another great sign for this Mets lineup is the emergence or seeming emergence of Mark Vientos.
And another guy who, we also saw spend some time rehabbing, not completely in the minors, but we saw Tyler McGill rehabbing and working on some stuff. And when you're working on some stuff with the Mets, you get the benefits of the pitching lab. You get some benefits of the amazing PD system that we have here. And Tyler McGill has been sporting that brand new American Spork that he got from Kodai Senga. And he looked really good in 5 innings of work with 7 strikeouts.
Yeah, you heard a lot about the Spork. 3 whiffs on 4 swings against. He had a whiff with 5 different pitch types in the start in Cleveland. So, hey, with Tyler, the biggest thing is staying healthy and throwing strikes. And, he's back. He's healthy now. And he was throwing strikes on Monday night in Cleveland. David Peterson is also nearing a return. He's made, I think, 5 rehab starts. They've all been pretty dominant. So the Mets have a dearth of options. Of course, Christian Scott is up. He'll pitch on Friday for the Mets against the Giants. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But really good to see Tyler, whether the Mets choose to use him as a traditional starter or in the bullpen. Maybe his stuff plays up a little bit out of the bullpen, a little bit more full throttle than having to pace yourself over 5-6 innings. But he looked really good against Cleveland, so that was a great sign. And the Mets are getting some more reinforcements, it seems, in the rotation. And there's been an elevation of a lot of talent throughout the system in the last week. Cade Morris was promoted to Brooklyn. He starred in his first start for them. Blade Tidwell, now with AAA. Nolan McLean was promoted to Binghamton. He's pitching right now. It's 8-11 on Wednesday night. He has 5 strikeouts, no walks at this very moment. So the Mets, that we've talked about this, are being aggressive, especially with the young arms. There are so many talented arms in this system. Brandon Sproat has now made 2 starts for AA. Binghamton, and he's dominated both of them, struck out 9 in his last one. So there's a lot to be excited about. And, you can't put anything past this front office in terms of how aggressive they want to be and challenging guys and perhaps having them join the Mets. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility, Vito, that a guy like Blade Tidwell is pitching in the major leagues at one point. Obviously, he needs to prove himself at AAA, and we know that's a challenge, especially with the automatic ball strike system. It's tougher to nibble, but if Blade Tidwell pitches well in AAA, don't be surprised to see the Mets say, hey, let's give this guy a chance in the majors. College guy, drafted 2 years ago. The writing's on the wall for that to be possibly in the cards here.
And another guy at a lower level of the minors in Brooklyn was Jonah Tong. Had his longest professional outing in this recent start. So it's just all levels firing on all cylinders. It's just been really fun to watch. Let's move on to our 4th thing to look at from the Cleveland series. And that's Francisco Lindor and his big homecoming to his original Major League Baseball team. the Cleveland Guardians. Is that still his original team? What do you think, John?
No, he played for the Indians. He played for. I remember his debut well in Detroit back in May of 2015. But yeah, Francisco.
So you're saying it's not. So you're saying it's not because you just said a different team name.
Well, I mean, they were at Progressive Field. They were down on 4th Street in
Also,
Cleveland.
it's the same team, and they didn't change cities. Like it's the same.
Yeah.
I'm making fun of some people who I've heard say that they don't feel they. When I was in LA, a man came up to me and told me that his team had left Cleveland and that he was no longer a fan of them. And then I'm not gonna go into detail on what this guy said, but he decided to root for a different team in baseball just based on their name. And you could do some riddle work there to figure out which one he was talking about.
I think I know what one it was. Yeah,
it was incredibly offensive. It was a wild thing to say, but. Yeah, man, Francisco Lindor, just big homecoming, and it's a lot of people are saying maybe this would be the thing to kind of like put a rocket on his back and just help going forward. And it was a good series in Cleveland.
Yeah, he has multiple hits now in 3 of his last 4 games. Of course, Carlos Mendoza moved him to the top of the lineup, reshuffling some of the chairs on the deck, if you would, dropping Nimmo down a little bit, and it's paid off. So the Mets have a day off on Thursday. I feel like some guys that have started to get going with the bat maybe wish they didn't have the day off and just keep it going, but they'll enjoy, they'll relax, and they'll try to keep it going. Francisco and Pete Alonso as well, who is our 5th entry here into the 5s, because Pete Alonso's been really good for the last 2 weeks now. He sits safely in 7 straight games, and he has an OPS over 900, 936 to be exact, in his last 14 games. Homered on Wednesday. You don't need, for listeners don't need you and I, Vito, to tell them how important a good Pete Alonso is and how, as Pete goes, the Met lineup kind of goes. I was randomly looking at his baseball reference page last night. He has really, really had some incredible seasons. 2022, he was amazing. Last year, he 46 home runs last year. It almost feels like he didn't hit 46 home runs, but he did. Of course, we know what he did in his rookie season. So, and Pete hits him in bunches. Last April, he looked like he was possibly going to push 60 for a little bit. Then he got hit by the Charlie Morton fastball, and that wasn't in the cards, but still wound up with 46, like we said. So Pete is heating up, and that's a big thing for the Mets, who the bats did their job for the most part on this road trip. I think it's fair to say that. So they'll have to keep it rolling at home, and we know that the Mets have struggled a little bit at home, especially offensively, but there's no reason why this lineup cannot turn that around. So look forward to seeing that starting Friday night against the Giants.
And that's the perfect time to jump right into our next 5. That's the 5 things the Mets need to do this weekend, John. Number 1, score first. Pretty plain and simple.
Yeah, it's tough to be playing from behind. There's got to be, and I know that this Mets team, we heard from Brandon Nimmo and many others, that they don't give up. It's a resilient club, but you would like to not have to play from behind constantly. You would like to take leads and make the other team press a little bit and really be able to have the roadmap for 27 outs. How are we going to get these 27 outs and be protecting a lead instead of trying to fight and scratch and claw back? So I know it kind of sounds obvious, but there have been a few games where the Mets have gone down early and, despite pushes and despite the resiliency and next man up and keep trying to crack the dam, sometimes when you go down 4-0 in the second or third inning, you're not always going to be able to overcome that. So it's important for the Mets to jump out to leads, get the crowd engaged early. The great Met fans. Friday night's going to be electric at the ballpark with DJ night. The weather's here. It's Memorial Day weekend, which is crazy. I didn't even realize that until I just said that. So, you score first, the vibes are good in the ballpark, and it all kind of goes from there.
And a piece of that, taking the lead early and staying in it, starting pitching, got to continue to go deep into games. Your starting pitching goes deep into games. That's less taxing on your bullpen. Obviously, Mets bullpen is going through a little bit of a rough patch right now, but that's why starting pitching needs to really hold down the ship.
Yeah, and they've done that for the most part. The last, you go back to the start of the Marlins series. Saturday, Luis Severino pitched 6 2/3. It's been no less than 5 innings in the last 5 games. So they've done a good job. And like you said, you just don't want to burn the bullpen. Of course, the news came out today, I think it was, that Brooks Raley is going to undergo season-ending Tommy John surgery. So that's a blow to the bullpen. But, hey, next man up. The Mets have a lefty who throws 95, and his name is Josh Walker, and now he's going to have a chance to make an impact here. So, but it's super important, especially with 10 games in 10 days, you do not want to be burning your bullpen out early. You need some length, and I think Carlos Mendoza at times has tried to push guys because he knows I can't keep using 4 or 5 relievers a night. And that's not just the Mets. That's any team. That's any manager. That's just how it goes. So that's important for the Mets starting pitchers to be able to pitch into the 5th, 6th, even 7th innings of games.
And John, I don't know if you saw, but Paul Gervais just came off the 7-day IL, and that's another guy who you never know. We could end up seeing him on the Mets roster some point this year. A really exciting guy from LSU, a guy John and I spoke to last year. I spoke to twice. Spoke to him once in person in Brooklyn, spoke to him at spring training. And, that's just one of those guys that you should definitely keep an eye on for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and there's also, and David Stearns did this with Milwaukee, Brandon Woodruff comes to mind, where, some of these young pitchers probably have innings limits, innings caps. They're not all necessarily hard and strict, but they exist. And so one way to cap a guy's innings, or at least rein them in, but also utilize him, especially a really talented guy, is bring him up to the majors and use him out of the bullpen. So that's also something that, Mets fans should keep in mind as a possibility, especially a guy like Dom Hamill, a guy like Blade Tidwell, a guy like Mike Vassell. These are also options. So there's a lot of flexibility. And with McGill coming back and with Peterson coming back and Lucchesi was up, the Mets really do have a lot of options. And, that's kind of baseball in 2024 is piecing it together, get 50 innings from this guy, 100 from that guy, 120 from this guy. You got a certain amount of innings to cover. That's just the way it is. You play 162 games. You got usually 9 innings a night, maybe a little bit more with extras, maybe a little bit less if you're the winning team. Well, actually, no, if you're the home team and you're winning, you still got to pitch the 9th inning. So, but yeah, there's a lot of options, and the Mets have a lot of different ways to be creative and flexible with keeping everybody fresh.
And one of those options that we saw come up this year in a move by David Stearns was Christian Scott. Christian Scott will be starting on Friday night. It's DJ night, like John said. And it's going to be a really fun night to come out and watch Christian Scott if you only got the one chance to see him at Citi Field so far. But Christian Scott has a real chance here to set the tone for the weekend against the Giants and really set the team off on the right path and get us that first series win since the Cardinals.
Yeah, unfortunately for Christian, kind of like me right now, the Rangers-Panthers game, I believe the puck just dropped. So once we're done here, I'm going to go into the other room and take that in. 8 o'clock start, not the 7 o'clock start like we had the first 2 rounds. But Christian's a big Panther fan, and game 2 of this series will be Friday night. So he will not be able to watch that game, unfortunately for him. But yeah, Christian will be making his fourth start.
When do you think he got back? Today? Cleveland's on a long flight, right?
No, I'm sure he's watching right now for sure.
Maybe he's there.
He could be there. That's not a bad point. But Christian and I, we're not friends right now over this. This is.
Don't say that. That's mean. That's harsh.
Right now you got to put it on pause. This is serious stuff, You know that. This is serious.
I know that, man. Hey, man, I got my Knicks playoff shirt on. I guess I shouldn't have worn my Knicks playoff shirt for that.
It's all right.
But yeah, it's Christian Scott set the tone this weekend. And before I interrupted you, John, you were about to wax poetic about Christian Scott.
No. I think that his last start in Miami, he didn't really have the feel for his slider and his sweeper, and he was throwing a lot of fastballs. To me, the sweeper is the bread and butter. It's such a devastating pitch when it's working. He was really good against the Braves in his Citi Field debut a couple weeks ago. I'm excited to see Christian Scott feeding off the energy at Citi Field on Friday night. Like you said, DJ night. There's a lot of excitement in the ballpark. So Christian Scott is he's going to bounce back in a big way on Friday.
All right, let's move on to the 4th of the 5 things the Mets need to do this weekend against the Giants, and that's going to be get to that Giants bullpen. That is one of the 5 worst pen ERAs in baseball right now. Obviously, you want to score first. Obviously, you want to get those runs, but if we're saying the Mets need to have that starting pitching go deep into games, we're saying we got to do just the opposite to these other teams. We brought up our Brandon Nimmo interview before because this is what Brandon Nimmo said. The whole thing that this lineup is trying to do from top to bottom is they're trying to push starting pitchers out of games no matter what because they're looking at a series of 3 games, not just one game at a time.
Yeah, it's you want to get into that bullpen. You want to make the other team wear their bullpen out and make their manager, in this case, Bob Melvin, have to make some tough decisions. Giants bullpen, like you mentioned, has struggled a little bit this year. So Mets are going to want to take advantage of that. And this Giants team will quickly transition into the last one. they're suffering when it comes to health. Michael Conforto is not healthy. They just lost Jung-Hoo Lee, who was one of their big offseason acquisitions. Some guys are struggling. They signed Jorge Soler. He's been struggling, hitting just north of the Mendoza line. Matt Chapman hasn't been exactly what the Giants hoped he would be with the bat, especially. So this is a Giants team that is looking and relying on some unsung heroes. Luis Matos is one of them, rookie center fielder who was just named National League Player of the Week. So the Giants are getting some contributions from places that you didn't necessarily think that they would get them from. But it's a team that's kind of going to be limping into Citi Field a little bit. So it's important for the Mets to set the tone on the homestand. We mentioned this in the last episode. There are 7 teams right now that are feeling like they have a stake to claim with that last National League wild card spot. Of course, we haven't even reached Memorial Day yet, so I know it sounds a little bit silly to talk about a postseason spot in the race, but there really is. There really are a lot of teams that are going to be in this race all year. And these head-to-head games are so important. And I know that because it's not even June yet, it might not feel like that. But in September, when you look back, everyone is a 2-game swing against a team that you're competing with. So the Mets will do that with the Giants, and they'll do that with the Diamondbacks, who are also in that same boat. The Nationals are in that boat. Mets haven't seen them yet. And of course, you got the Dodgers, who will come into town, and the Dodgers are just it's an impressive team. By the way, Dodger Stadium, 15
How
out
was
of
it?
10. 15 out of 10. Awesome. So, I mean, just it's baseball. It's baseball as it ought to be.
What did you think of that whole thing of walking in from the top of the stadium?
So I got to go through the media entrance, so I didn't get that experience. But leaving, we got in the elevator.
But
and
you don't go.
We
You
were
don't
going
enter from
up.
the top for the media.
No, I don't think so. I was kind of black. I kind of blacked out. Also, I was so excited when we got there. I was just looking all around and following the group. But leaving was crazy because you get in the elevator at Citi Field. You get in the elevator. You're going down street level. You walk out. Dodger Stadium, we're going up. And I'm like, are we going up to go down? Or like, do we have to walk somewhere and then go back down? And then it dawned on me, no, like street level is up and they built it down into the, the mountains. So, but it's just an amazing place. Really is. You know, it's 72 degrees, no wind. The Dodgers hit 3 homers in an inning, which was cool to see. I saw Yoshinobu Yamamoto pitch, which was cool. It's just a classic baseball setting. So it was really, really neat.
Did you take an Uber after the game?
No, we had a car service.
Okay.
So I'll give you.
There's a pig pen that you go to get your Uber, and I was hoping you also experienced it.
No, didn't experience that. I did have a Dodger dog though.
How was it?
I was not overly impressed, and I got the grilled one because I know that they do some boiled, some grilled. I got a grilled one. The condiment selection wasn't exactly what I think it would be if you were at the concession stand. They bring them up to the press room in the 5th inning. So I grabbed one from there. And it was only ketchup and mustard available. And I was rushing. It was between innings. I had to get back to the booth. And I don't think I did a good job distributing the ketchup and the mustard properly. Look, they're long and that's cool. You know, it's not like a tiny little hot dog. And I like that, but I don't know. I just think that nothing beats a Nathan's, you know? That's just kind of where I landed on that. So I was happy I did it. Look, I'm not a hot dog guy. You know that. But it was one thing I was 1,000,000% going to try, and I'm happy I did. And maybe some like sauerkraut, some onions would have enhanced it, leveled it up. But it wasn't, for all the talk, the chatter, the legendary nature of it, it wasn't quite that. But I'm still happy I got to try it, and just a great experience at Dodger Stadium altogether.
Did you feel any of the similarities to Shea that you've heard people say?
Yeah, so I got there really early, and I was kind of just sitting in some seats and taking it all in. And when I sat down in the seats, I was like, man, these are like Shea Stadium seats. The same plastic, like the nuts and the bolts and the metal that they use. It was all the same. So definitely had a Shea vibe for sure.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but do they also have the field level boxes like Shea had?
I don't remember.
I don't think so, right?
I don't think so. No, like the actual squares. No, they didn't have that. No.
Because that was such a weird thing at Shea where like every seat on the field was like a little tiny box that you went into.
Yeah. When I was growing up, that's what I thought was like box seats. But
me too.
People would always say I have box seats. And I was like, oh, because you're in a little box on the field level. But I don't think that's what box seats actually was, but whatever.
No, but Mets fans called it box seats all the time because I thought the same thing the first time I got invited to field level. Somebody said I had box seats. I thought we were going to be in a suite, and then I got there and I was sitting in a little
In a
pig
box.
pen.
Yeah.
But one last question about when you left the stadium. Did you take the freight elevator up or did you walk up the stairs?
Elevator. I got lucky. I was able to grease the skids and not have to wait on the lines to get out of there. It's not an easy egress, I'll tell you that much. Obviously, there's no train, there's no bus, everyone drives, so it can get messy. But I was fortunate enough to kind of slip right out. So I don't want to divulge more than that.
Let's move into a stadium that's easy to get in and out of because you got the 7 line, you got an easy Uber pickup drop off, you got tons of parking. Let's talk about Citi Field and 5 things you can do this weekend at Citi Field. Number 1, it's Memorial Day weekend. Head to the K Corner before the game. Get that pregame on and get those $3 Coors Light drafts.
Yeah, we got to get that permission to go ourselves, Vito. I know that we can't just do it unilaterally, but we will. Let's work on that.
Oh, 100%. After June 6th, when I have a wedding that I need to go to, and I'm just trying to fit back into my wedding tux, and I need to lose about 5 pounds in the next 2 weeks. But after that, I am down to go indulge in the $3 K Corner happy hour. And I saw the cups people were drinking out of when I was in there last week. I didn't get to partake. I was filming something with social. And they're not like – it's not like you're getting little thimbles, you know? You're getting a nice cup.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the next thing that's happening at Citi Field this weekend, which is – I'm very excited about this, John. It's brand new food. And it is the Coca-Cola food truck at the Coca-Cola Corner. I'm talking about New York panini with 3 different sandwich options.
I'm reading them right now. You got the Verrazano, the What Do You Shay, which is a great name, and the Brooklyn. So the What Do You Shay has spicy mayo. Oh, dude. So last night in LA, I went to Sugarfish for dinner.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I asked a question that before it left my mouth, I knew I shouldn't be asking it, but I did. And it was, do you guys have spicy mayo? And they looked at me like I was insane. And I
is that not a spicy mayo place? Or they look down on that there?
Oh no. Because they're like, yeah, our fish is too, you don't need spicy mayo for our fish. I was like, all right, fair enough. Sorry.
So Sugarfish is pretty cool. They're known for like their take-home boxes that are really delicious. Like for I think our anniversary. Not our anniversary. We had maybe it was Valentine's Day a few years ago. We literally just grabbed like 2 boxes and took them back to the apartment and just had a nice night at home. But John brought up spicy mayo because the New York panini sandwiches. So I do want to just tell people about what we got going on here. The Verrazano is a chicken cutlet with Mott's vodka sauce on ciabatta. Basically a chicken parm panini. It was my favorite of the 3 I got to try when I went to New York panini last week. The What Do You Shay is a burger with mozzarella, red onions, tomatoes, baby arugula, spicy mayo, and it's actually pressed like a panini. And then finally the Brooklyn, which is their take on a sausage and pepper. So it's got hot sausage, it's got mozz, hot peppers, grilled onions, also a pressed sandwich, and all their mozzarella is homemade fresh mozz, which is like the only way to eat it. Like John, I don't know if you've had homemade fresh. I think you would actually enjoy it.
I have, and I do. That's the one cheese that I'll make an exception for.
Dude, so I feel like you're going to enjoy New York panini, and it's right by our office, so it's easy to get to. It's right by the control room. You know, because I know you've been walking over to the gyro stand, the Euro stand a lot.
Yes, that is the one spot I've definitely frequented so far this year. So I'm going to check that out for sure. You just sold it to me.
Well, that's good. Now let's talk about DJ Night this Friday. John, you know more about DJ Night because you're a big part of the planning committee for DJ Night, I feel.
Yeah, we got DJ Sage coming in. She was here last year on the 1s and 2s, crushes it every time. So excited to have her back. Yeah, I mean, if you're at Citi Field and you want to dance and party, make your way out to the Shea Bridge. That's where the DJ set will be. Multiple sets throughout the night, and just a really, really nice party vibe, I think. A nice addition to the environment at Citi Field. So always love DJ nights every home Friday between now, Labor Day weekend. So definitely be there for that. I think a 12-minute pregame set, just nothing but dancing and having a good time. So maybe a little DJ cam possibly during the Wheel of Cams during the game. So come out, sing, dance, have fun with your friends, your family, maybe even by yourself if you want to do that. If you roll that way, that's cool too.
Yeah.
Be there for DJ night.
And I believe on fireworks night, the DJ will do like a set. And I know fireworks night isn't this weekend, but it's next weekend. But the DJ will play music in between the game and fireworks, because that's usually one of the toughest things about those nights. Is like the game ends and you're waiting for the party to start and you're looking for something to do. There you got a DJ over there out by the Shea Bridge, and you got something to just look forward to.
Got that? Yeah, the Queen's crew to entertain us. We got a lot, so we got a lot of fun stuff coming up here in the next. That's right. In the next couple of weeks, we got a lot of good stuff coming up.
You miss your Queen's crew? You haven't seen them in a few weeks.
I haven't. Yeah, no, I do, but we'll all be reunited on Friday, so looking forward to that for sure.
All right, we got 2 things left on the 5 things to do at Citi Field this weekend. 5 reasons to go to the ballpark. One of those is the tote bag that's going to be available on Saturday's game. That's part of the Artist Series, and it's a really nice beach tote. We saw it on the last episode. Nice thing to put your groceries in, man. You don't want to pay that $1 fee when you go to the grocery store. But the 5th thing is, I think by far, and I'm sorry to the tote bag is still a great item, and I still think you should go. But the item of the series, it's that Hello Kitty light-up bobble arm that will be available on Sunday for the 1 o'clock game against the Giants, which also kids can run the bases after the game. And I never got to do that as a kid. And if you have kids, I think you should bring your kids there to do that.
But there should also be an adults run the bases, I think.
Well, the Cyclones do. Everybody runs the bases.
Yeah, I know. But hey, like a guy like you never did it as a kid. It's an experience everyone should have. So
I agree. It's a cool. I mean, like when you're an adult, you have your chance with like Bark at the Park, like to like walk the warning track, which is pretty cool. But that Hello Kitty light-up bobble arm.
I remember running the bases. I got to, Mookie Wilson and Cookie Rojas, who were the first and third base coaches. They stayed around, and as you rounded third, you got to high five Cookie Rojas. I have great fond memories of doing that.
That's pretty cool. Those are those memories that last a lifetime. I mean, like, look at you. You're a 32-year-old man now who's working for the team, doing the team podcast, and you still remember that Mookie Wilson moment.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that Hello Kitty light up bobble arm. And John, it's funny that that's this weekend, because that actually, I believe the Dodgers also did a Hello Kitty thing a year or two ago. So look at us coming full circle with what you did this weekend and what's available at Citi Field.
They had a lot of bobbleheads. They had a Shohei last week. I think Mookie was the night after I was there.
Do you know how much money the Shohei's going for?
A lot, I'm sure, like hundreds. Thousands?
Try over $1,000. Try over $1,000.
That's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I was low-key sniffing around, seeing if there were any left over, but to no avail. I wouldn't sell it, by the way. I just wanted one because that's a really cool piece.
Well, I had a friend send me, they went to the Ken Griffey Jr. bobblehead day at a Mariners game a few weeks ago, and they sent me one of the bobbleheads. I didn't have any friends going to the Dodgers game, and I'm sure if I did, they would not have sent me one. When I went to the Dodgers game, I got lucky enough to get 3 Brooklyn Dodgers hats, but I think those are a different level of giving them away to a random person you just met versus the Shohei Ohtani bobblehead.
Yeah.
But the Hello Kitty bobblehead, that's going to be a hit this weekend. But let us know in the comments how you like this new format. If you like the 5, if you want to keep seeing more of it, maybe you like a different number. Maybe you want to see the 3. Maybe you want to see the 9. Let
6
us know.
For Timo Perez. It could be 6 for Timo. Sorry to interrupt you, but I had to throw Timo Perez in there.
Or you could tell us you hate it, and you could say, we want the 0 for Mr. Met.
0-0.
0-0 for Mr. Met, 0 for Adam Ottavino.
And Ray Ordonez.
He was 0-0?
He was 0-0. I think
okay.
Tony Clark might have been 0-0.
I remember Gilbert Arenas was 0-0, right?
Agent 0.
Agent 0, 0-0. Well, thank you guys for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at Vito F. Khaleesi. John is on Twitter at JMB9191. We said it before. We'll say it now. It's obviously Twitter because we've never said you can follow us on X. But hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And leave some comments. Like I said, let us know if you like this new idea of a format we have. And
Vito, let me know. Do you like the new background behind me? I know the people listening cannot see, but
I've been very distracted, especially by the one specifically over your right. Is that your right shoulder? Yeah, that guy's been giving me bad vibes.
All right. Hey, I tried out a new location.
Oh,
honestly,
what about the baby?
She's upstairs. She's sleeping.
No, not your baby. The baby in the picture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I haven't gotten an explanation on this piece, so I will
The red wall doesn't help either.
well, honestly, the game's on in that room and I can kind of hear the TV, so no score by the way, so I didn't miss any action. That's good.
No, but I'm just saying the red wall with the painting, it adds a hint of horror.
I didn't paint it, but I'll let everyone know you said that.
I don't want problems with I don't want problems with the
Well, hey,
Truffle King.
people are listening, so you know.
Oh, is that why you were saying, "Hey, I could hear the game over there"? Like, you're like, if I can hear the game, they could hear the loud Italian guy.
Yes, but also people listen to the podcast. So specifically the Tiffany Haddish interview. Anyway, check that out by the way if you hadn't. All right, Vito, time to go.
All right, see you guys.